Welcome back to One Winning Pod, where we're talking about the Steelers game having to go to Acrisure Stadium, which will always be Heinz Field in my heart, and I think Steve's as well. And of course, we do have Steve here yet again.
Hello.
Our number one Steelers fan. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thanks. Hi, everyone.
Well, man, it's another, big game, big divisional rivalry game, and these teams are battled. Have gone through some battles already. The Steelers have been a really interesting team this year. They're 2-2 with a negative 38 point differential, and it's just like, what's going on over there, man? It feels like there's certain things that we thought would be really good about the Steelers, and it's just not clicking just yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I can ever remember a year with such disconnect between the off season and the regular season. I think I'm sure I always have rose-colored glasses, but I think I'm usually pretty realistic. But I really thought that they were looking good this year. Like, everything clicked in the off season, from the draft through training camp through preseason, and it's just been a 180 since the season started. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, both the Houston game and the San Francisco game, I mean, they didn't just get beat badly. They looked terrible in both of those games. They looked really bad. So, yeah, I'm at a loss for what's going on.
Well, I suppose I won't say good, I guess, coming from like a Ravens fan, but like good from like a Steelers fan perspective of San Francisco won really, really good team. And Houston also, I think people were a little bit unsure the first couple weeks. After the first 4 weeks, I think they're a team that's trending up too.
Yeah, I was impressed with them. I thought they looked really good. But that didn't stop the Steelers from looking really bad. Like, they just couldn't get anything going on either side of the ball. At least in the San Francisco game, they had the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half that looked pretty great. But there was almost nothing in the Houston game, nothing at all. There was Najee had a couple of nice plays, but other than that, there was really nothing positive to even consider from that one. So, and the biggest talking point in Steelers land is Matt Canada. Matt Canada's got to go. That's what everybody's saying. That would be very, very un-Steeler like to have a mid-season firing. It's I don't think it's ever happened in my lifetime that certainly I'm not aware of that happening, but it could. Tomlin said at the end of his post-game presser, he said, we have to make some changes. I don't know what that means. 2 weeks ago, it meant more Matt Canada. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, looking at this Steelers offense, since we're on Canada, I guess we can start with that. With Steelers teams in the past, there always seemed to be an identity, whether, it was around running the ball with Jerome Bettis or Willie Parker, or, the years when they had AB and Martavis Bryant and really airing it out there with Roethlisberger. And I was really impressed with Kenny Pickett, his rookie year. And after that bye week, obviously he had a lot of turnovers at first. Then they kind of simplified the offense for him. And, maybe he wasn't lighting the world on fire, but certainly seemed to get the offense on the right path. But looking at the team right now, I mean, injuries has been a part of it. Obviously, losing Deontay Johnson, not terribly great, even though, you're still wanting to have a little bit more from him. But it just feels like you're not really seeing this offense really say, hey, we're really want to do passing here, or we really want to do rushing. Both sides of that equation just seem to kind of be really inconsistent. And I'm not sure which of those two the Steelers really want to rely on going forward for their best foot forward. And I mean, the Kenny Pickett injury, that really doesn't help things either. That just muddies the water further.
Well, I mean, what they have said, pretty explicitly going into the season is that they want to play bully ball. They want to be a rush first team, and they just haven't been able to get it going. The offensive line has regressed this year, and I don't know why. Mason Cole, their center, he was decent last year. They had, last year they had the same 5 starting offensive linemen for all 17 games, which is just unreal. And they moved on from Kendrick Green and got a new left guard, but the Mason Cole, the center, just has been off this year, and the whole line. Dan Green is that his name? Dan Moore, left tackle. He seems to have regressed. Sayamalo, who they picked up from the Eagles, seems decent, but he's new. And so, last year it took the guys that were new. It took a while for that unit to kind of gel, but once it did, they were okay. But the one change seems to be a significant upgrade from Kendrick Green to Sayamalo, but it has not resulted in improvement in the line. The bully ball thing is not happening for them so far. I have been the world's biggest optimist on Najee Harris, and I feel like my hope has run out this year. I just and I know the line is part of it, but even when it's not the line, he's just doesn't seem to be making it happen. Jaylen Warren is clearly more explosive than him. Neither one of them seems to be having much success. So that's that's what their identity is supposed to be, run first. And so when that's not happening, it makes it hard when the plan wasn't to be a pass first team, and when their biggest their probably most consistent and reliable passing weapon has been injured all year. So.
Yeah, I know you guys are saying that the offensive line isn't looking very good. Do you think it's because you're getting in disadvantaged, like 3rd and long situations where the defense can kind of pin their ears back? Or
yeah, that's definitely part of it. And I think the play calling has been pretty predictable. That hurts too. So it feels like I believe they lead the league in 3 and outs. I'm not positive about that, but I think so. And it just seems like we got to get stuffed on a run, and then we have 3rd and long, and they haven't converted very many of those. I was listening to a podcast today, like where has the Steeler offense been successful? It's basically been the hope for the occasional big play. They've had a couple double explosive plays, but when they don't get that big one, like they can't get anything going, and just march the ball up the field. Just other than that one drive against San Francisco, it just hasn't happened at all.
Yeah, well, I feel like for this matchup, I think Pickett's health is still up in the air. It's still a little early, so we're not exactly sure if he's going to play or not. But signs aren't looking great. I do feel like from the perspective of being able to make a big play, Trubisky played pretty well. Was it like 2 years ago when the Ravens played him? And I feel like I don't know if necessarily want to say trap game, because I guess this is like a road game, but it's a matchup, I think, where I think the Ravens defense definitely kind of has to take a look at this and be like, this guy has done some damage in the past. I agree. Like I feel like from the wide receiver room as well, it's like you still got guys who can play. It's really just a matter of a couple things go right, you can get them the ball. I think some damage can be done, and with a new quarterback probably playing, I think that kind of adds a little bit of an extra variable in the mix. Obviously I feel like the kind of story for the Steelers offense right now is just things are stale. They're not really working right. Well, even though you may not want to make a change of quarterback, when that does happen, it can change things up a little bit. So, I think I feel like the passing game for me is probably one area that I would be a little bit concerned with, especially if Marlon Humphrey isn't able to come back. I think like a guy like George Pickens, honestly, I don't know who would match up well with him. Maybe Brandon Stevens, I guess. He's probably the biggest corner that we have right now. Darby's kind of on the smaller side. Rock's a little bit on the smaller side. But I feel a lot better about Marlowe playing that matchup than maybe Stevens. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy I think I'd be a little bit worried about.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that with Trubisky in there that they open it up a little, maybe try to get a little more aggressive. But I don't know. Again, play calling, I don't know. It's still the same playbook and the same play caller. So, I think Trubisky, for better or worse, might be willing to let it rip more. But that could all too often be for worse.
Well, Steve, I'm a little confused. So, we see the injury doesn't look great. MRI makes it sound like they're like, oh, maybe they're optimistic. MRI makes it sound like, well, they have a bye week the next week, so maybe they won't play this week. Like, is there any other reports that you've gotten out of that, or is that kind of where we're at?
I was just pulled up an article right now. It says bone bruise, left knee, muscle strain. Doors open for him to play week 5, but the team, with the week was having a week 6 bye. I'm not expecting him to play. I'm guessing that he's not going to play, but I haven't heard anything more than that. Yeah. It's a Rappaport rumor.
I feel like you can't get into false sense of security. I remember the first time we watched the game with you, the away game last year, Pickett got knocked out. Mr. Trubisky came in. It was a ball game nonetheless. And
yeah, that's right.
And and like, I mean, we saw Minshew beat us instead of AR. So like, we know this matchup. The Steelers have won 6 out of the last 10. They're ahead in the past 5 seasons. So
yeah,
Lamar's been conveniently missing a lot of games in the last 5 years against you guys. Yeah. So that might be part of it. But at the same time,
for sure.
We gotta get our acting gear from our perspective against the Steelers. So, it's a divisional game. Yes, we won 28-3 and you guys spanked Cleveland as well, but typically these games are really close. And
I would not say we spanked Cleveland. We had 2 defensive touchdowns and won by 5 points. So, I mean, it was not, They didn't beat them with their offense.
A little bit of an escape
That's
there.
Fair.
I mean, that is the really interesting thing about this Ravens-Steelers matchup, right? It's like it never matters which team is better going in. And it also doesn't ever seem to matter who the quarterback is. I mean, look, we've had games, what was it, 2012, the home game against Pittsburgh for the Ravens. The year Ravens most recently went to the Super Bowl. Steelers won that game on a last-minute field goal with Charlie Batch starting. And then 2015, Steelers going to the playoffs. I think they'd end up going to the AFC Championship that year. Obviously, we had a slew of injuries, and we're starting the late Ryan Mallett, and Ravens come out on a victory with there. And there's other games we could pull out here where a
couple years ago with RG3,
right. Yep.
Right? So you guys had clinched. You had nothing to play for, and put RG3 in there, and killed it.
Yeah. So it's funny, we're spending so much time talking about, obviously is Pickett or Trubisky going to play, and it might not matter because it's probably going to be a competitive game no matter what. It's just such a really interesting rivalry.
It is. The history of the rivalry is the only thing that gives me hope for it to have a chance to be a good game, because when I look at it objectively, there's there's not a lot of reason to be optimistic, but gosh, was it 2 years ago? I was similarly pessimistic, and the Steelers won that one. That was the famed failed 2-point conversion business.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, those controversies are kind of over now, right? Like we haven't heard about that for a while.
So far, let's not hold our breath. It's only been 4 weeks. Let's not do victory laps yet with that.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Sheesh.
Hey, Steve, here's a question, kind of last question I have on like the offensive guys. So, have you seen much from either Broderick Jones or was it Darnell Washington? Have those guys, like, I know Jones is playing behind Moore, I think you talked about, but what about Washington? Have you seen him at all? Has he shown anything much?
A little. He had a pretty good reception against against Houston late. He looked pretty fast and strong. I thought it was a pretty impressive rep. Broderick Jones. Dan Moore went out with an injury Sunday, and I haven't heard any more about that since then. But I haven't really looked either. It kind of, we've all been kind of expecting at some point in the season that, Broderick Jones was going to get eased into that job. So this could be, the impetus of things just kind of working themselves out. That he is going to stay, and it's I'm not very good at judging linemen on tape, but from what I understand, he did fine on Sunday. I don't think he stood out, but I don't think in either a good way or a bad way. So I haven't seen much to judge him on, but this past Sunday was the first time that he had much significant play time, and it went okay.
Yeah.
So neither one of them has done anything super impressive yet, but also neither one of them has felt like oh, that was a mistake. I think they're both as expected in that they haven't done very much. Yeah. Joey Porter, I just, so not to jump around, but just kind of thinking rookies, like he's looked good, and he hasn't played very much. He's only played dime, but he's looked very good, and their defensive lineman, his name in a minute, but he's looked really good, but Washington and Jones haven't really done too much yet.
Yeah, trading Claypool for Joey Porter Jr. was quite the gambit. Well done.
Yeah, highway robbery. Yeah.
So I will say, I've been keeping an eye on Washington myself as a guy who liked him in the draft process and has him in some dynasty leagues, and he's managed to play like 20% of snaps and getting absolutely no targets. So
no, that's not much. I think he might have 2 catches. His catch Sunday looked pretty good. Like
there you go. Okay.
He had a nice little run after catch, stiff arm, and he got a first down. He had to run to the sticks for the first down, and he got it. So it was it's one small thing, but it looked nice.
And not to belabor the whole George Pickens thing, particularly with the recent Ojabo news, I think the more interesting storyline for Ravens fans is actually Calvin Austin. He has a little vendetta against the Ravens for picking a punter before him when we clearly were interested in him. So, and I know he's been having a little bit of a show at the beginning of the year here. He's been getting targets, been more involved in the offense. So I'm curious if he'll be able to show him who's boss. I feel like he wants to. So. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on Mr. Calvin.
Yeah, and if Mitch Trubisky was going to grip it and rip it, that would be a good way to go. Just send Austin running down the field with his hand up.
I guess kind of going over to the defense. the thing that scares me the most is we don't know what our tackle situation is from a Ravens perspective. Stanley may or may not be healthy, may not be able to play. Moses may or may not be healthy. And that leads us to McCary and Falele, which we saw against Garrett and now I'm blanking on Mr. Cleveland's name. What's his name?
Yeah, Clowney?
No. We have him now.
Yeah. You guys know.
Clowney's on our team.
The old Raven.
Za'Darius.
Yeah.
Za'Darius.
So, Za'Darius. There he is. But, we saw how that went. It wasn't great. You guys have quite the combo as well, right? You have Watt. You have Highsmith.
That's the one... That's the one unit. Well, okay, so special teams, kicking, both place kicker and punter have been good. But other than that, outside linebacker has been really the one consistently positive unit on the whole squad. So obviously, Watt is amazing. Highsmith has had a great season too, and depth as well, because Herbig has been good when he's played. And Marcus Golden is actually the number 3, and he's got a couple sacks as well. So that the outside linebackers is really the one bright spot on the whole unit right now. So as a fan, not displeased to hear that tackle is up in the air for you guys.
No, it's definitely. I think it's the area that I would imagine the Steelers are going to try and try and attack there. Like we said, we don't know the health, but signs aren't looking terribly good at the moment. And then the Ravens did, I think, a fine job against the Browns. I mean, Lamar did still get sacked 3 times, and several times he had to escape the pocket to deliver the throw or to run, but. A lot of having to use Patrick Ricard in there to help out with blocking. Gus Edwards, running back, did some good job picking up blocks as well. But it's interesting. I don't know which of those two edge rushing groups are better. I mean, because Myles Garrett is clearly an absolute freak of nature, but I mean, so is T.J. Watt as well, and Alec Highsmith and Za'Darius Smith aren't, are still really good players as well. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of going to be the same exact story for the Ravens. If we already had this challenge against Cleveland, now we're just going to have it again a second time, so 2 weeks in a row. But I guess that also plays into the Steelers' hands as well, because now they can look on tape and how the Ravens attacked that and see, at least know what to look out for, and we'll see what the Ravens try the same and what they do different.
How many sacks do the Browns get?
3 sacks on Lamar.
Yeah. So, you guys remember that not too long ago, the Steelers had that, record run of consecutive games with snaps, with at least 1 sack, 55, 56. I don't remember what number it finally ended at. But it did end while TJ was injured. They actually did not get a sack against Houston, which was stunning. That was supposed to be, that was supposed to be, their best advantage in that matchup. And not only, Steelers pass rush is supposed to be their strength, but Houston's line was decimated. They had several injuries. They had a couple guys that were called up from the practice squad that were playing. They had Kendrick Green, who was a disaster for us, and they got in the second half. They started to get some pressure, but they never got all the way there.
One thing we talked about on the last episode was that Cameron Hayward is on IR. That's not great for you guys. One question I had was, how's DeMarvin Leal been playing? He was a guy I remember from the draft process I wasn't most keen on, but some people did like. So I'm wondering how he's looking so far.
He looked good the other against Houston. He had a he might have had a quarterback hit. None of their linemen has really popped, but Keanu Benton and Leal have both looked promising. So I think I believe they each have one sack. But they haven't. I would not say that overall defensive line has been a strength for them this year. I don't know that it's been a glaring weakness, but it hasn't been a strength. They've gotten run all over. I heard the 3 of their first 4 games they've given up over 120 yards rushing, and that hasn't happened in like 50 years or something.
Yeah. It looks like Leo also exited the game against Houston with a concussion. So
I didn't remember that.
A depth perspective, I know he plays the same position as Hayward, but
I didn't remember that.
We'll have to see throughout the week if he's able to make it back through protocol.
So I'm looking back at the notes we did in the off season for our State of the Division episode, and I know you guys signed 2 veteran interior linebackers who really were looked at as really good run defenders in Holcomb and Roberts. How have they been doing in run defense? Have they been as advertised? Or, I mean, based on what you said at the onset of the show, I'm guessing there might be some missed expectations there.
Based on the results, not good. Now, both of those guys, like, they both had some pretty impressive splash moments, like, where they've had a big stick. I remember that there was I think it was against the Raiders. So Landon Roberts had the Raiders had like a 4th and a foot or something, and Landon Roberts came in there and stuffed the sneak, and that was pretty impressive. So like using the my casual like fan eyes, non film watcher, I don't go back and break down film and watch reruns and replays of everything. As a casual fan, I feel like both of them have looked good because they've had impressive moments. But like I said, the overall results haven't been good. And I know, people I know that do watch tape more carefully have not been very impressed with them. So I couldn't give you details about why, but I guess the results speak for themselves. If the Browns gashed them, 49ers gashed them, the Texans gashed them.
But you stopped the Raiders.
They were able to stop. They stopped Josh Jacobs. So,
but so is everyone.
Yeah,
until last week.
That was more of a volume thing, though. I mean, they just kept giving him the football. If you don't have 150 yards against the Chargers and you're Josh Jacobs, I think that's a failure.
Yeah. And he had a bunch of receiving yards too, I think.
I guess the Ravens wide receiver situation not particularly clear at the moment. Bateman missed last week. Odell, who apparently had like a minor injury and was going to be manageable, he's missed. So I don't know about that. And how do you feel like your secondary is going to be able to match up against those players?
Patrick Peterson has looked slow. He's technique is it still seems to be great, but he gets beat, and so a little nervous about Zay Flowers. He's fast, right?
A little bit.
They've got 3 out of 4 defensive backs are new this year. Or wait, no, sorry, Levi Wallace is not. So Levi Wallace and Minka Fitzpatrick, but the other, Keanu Neal and Patrick Peterson are new, and
Desmond King.
King. Now, he's not a starter on defense. I believe this last game was his first time he had a hat, and he was mainly a returner. I don't remember seeing him on defense. But Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson have both gotten beaten a lot. People are calling for Joey Porter to starting over Wallace. I don't know that that's going to happen, until maybe after the bye. So, yeah, I think their defensive backs are beatable. Minka's great, of course, but he keeps getting called for penalties, some of which I think are questionable. But it is what it is.
It's interesting. I feel like for the next off season, it might be good to kind of have you on to talk a little bit about just like almost like the GMs around the division. Yeah. I feel like I'm looking at this defensive roster and I have lots of questions about what new GM Omar Khan is doing over here because I don't know. Levi Wallace, he's a decent player out of Buffalo, but now I mean looking kind of at the depth chart, I mean he's your top guy, and yeah, if he's already kind of been clamoring to be replaced, that's not great. Patrick Peterson, obviously, I mean he has been a fantastic player, but
he's 33.
Yeah, like you said, just like from what we've seen so far, it's like some of the physical traits, I mean, they're falling off. Yeah, I mean, the Steelers have obviously, I mean, they've let a lot of guys walk. I think Mike Hilton was a guy who was really good, ended up going to the Bengals and was playing really well for them. I mean, hell, even Millette actually had a pretty good game for us against the Browns, but yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of those situations too. Like if the Steelers didn't take Joey Porter Jr., they'd really be in pickle.
And then the guy that got injured, their 7th rounder, Corey Trice. So would be interesting to see how he'd be looking. I think as far as the GM, I've been impressed with Omar Khan and but I do think that the one decision that I personally second guess is Patrick Peterson over Cameron Sutton, because Cameron Sutton was their one significant free agent that they lost, and I feel like what he signed for versus what they're paying Peterson. I feel like they could have made that work. The problem, well, yeah, I guess he was their nickel corner, and I don't know if maybe philosophical question if you want to pay your nickel corner, 12, 13 million, but I think it would have been good to keep him. Levi Wallace. At the time during the off season, that seemed like a smart decision. They let their I can't even think right now who was their other boundary corner last year, but they let him go because he had Witherspoon, Akello Witherspoon. He did not have a good season. Wallace played pretty well last year, and it made sense to keep Wallace and let Witherspoon go. With nobody under any illusion that Levi Wallace was going to be Darrelle Revis or anything like that. He just was a solid number 2 cornerback, and he's been up and down. I mean, he's gotten beat a fair amount of times, enough that a lot of the fan base is unhappy. But he's had some good moments too. So in fact, I think against Houston, he probably I think he was better than Peterson on Sunday.
Anything else you want to talk about, or score predictions, bold predictions?
Well, like I said earlier, the history of the rivalry is the only thing preventing me from going like 30-10. but I don't think it will be. I still am not optimistic. So I'm going to say Ravens 24-16. That'll be my score prediction. I think Boswell's going to have score a bunch because they're going to get field goals, not touchdowns. defensive touchdown and 3 field goals.
What's your bold prediction?
How about a splash play by little brother Hayward? So we'll say a 40 plus yard play from Trubisky to Hayward. So that'll be my bold prediction.
Isn't he their fullback?
Well, tight end. He kind of he plays a little H back, little fullback, but technically he's a tight end, and he does sometimes go down the seam, and so I don't if he gets that play, it's not going to be 40 yards in the air, but it could be 20 yards in the air and a long run after. So that'll be my bold prediction.
So Vegas is a fun one. They have the Ravens favored by 4.5, over under 38.5. So they expect a low scoring game. I imagine, the state of the offense on your guys' side with the questions at quarterback might be pulling down that number. And I kind of feel like that's kind of on the right track. I do think the Ravens win this game. I don't think it'll be a blowaway. I'm thinking maybe they win by 2 scores, but no more. So to me, maybe, man, it's kind of similar to your score. Like I feel like around 24-ish for the Ravens, maybe. And then maybe I'll say 17. We'll give you 2 tutties and a field goal. Or maybe they'll go for 2. Call back to earlier. So I'll go with 24-17. Not just to Price is Right you there, but I feel like that's right around the money. So
here we go.
And then
great minds think alike.
My bold prediction is going to be: I like Warren a lot. I don't like Najee, has been well documented.
You've been proven fairly right in that regard.
I'm going to say we hold you guys for under 45 rushing yards.
All right. Yeah. I am also going to say close game. I'm a little concerned about this game for the Ravens. I think that this is a perfect spot. If there's ever been a perfect spot for the Steelers to really come in focused and get things back on track, you got a home game, division, your arch rival there. That they could come out here firing. They really could. It'll be really interesting if the Ravens can pull off a win, because then it'll be by week 5 we'll have had a win in every stadium in the AFC North. I was looking back on it. This will be the only other time we've ever finished our tour of the opposing stadiums by week 5 was 2018. We did not go 3-0 during that stretch. We went 1-2 in that tour. But yeah, really interesting scheduling quirk to be done with your road division games this early in the season. But
wow, that's nice.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Should hopefully be an advantage down the stretch. We'll see how the season plays out. But
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're all thinking along the same lines. I'm going to go 22-17. We'll put that 2-pointer in there for the Ravens. Could certainly see this coming down to the fourth quarter, and then Ravens have to churn out a drive there to get that final score to put them over the top. And I think a way they'll be able to do it is by attacking the interior of the Steelers' defense. Ride the Gus bus to 125 plus yards. I think we're going to see a big game from him. Couldn't really get him going too well against Cleveland. Played well, but I mean it's a really tough run defense. I think that with J.K. out, the Ravens really want to get Gus some work, and I think this is a great opportunity for them to.
I love that bold prediction, Peter. Would love to see more work from the Gus bus. But I'll go a little bit different here. I feel like last week we were all in unison that it was going to be a close game, and then it wasn't. So I feel like in the spirit here, I'm going to change it up a little bit. Maybe I'll say the Ravens score a lot. I'm going to say they hit over 30. They haven't done that in a while. So I'm going to say, how about 31-13 Ravens? And the main thing right now is, it's honestly just what we talked about at the top, the Steelers' identity on offense. It's just a little, it's a little fragmented right now. Ravens defense is playing really well, And yes, I know they had the game against the Colts, but weather, trap game, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't the right game. I fully believe they'll be prepared. The away game in Pittsburgh, I think next week, the London game, I think that could be an opportunity for a trap game. Just a little bit of a spoiler.
Are you guys playing in London? Is it
the Titans?
Okay.
But anyway, 31-13 Ravens. My bold prediction will be, you know what? I think Andrews stacks his games. I think this is another good opportunity for him to be fed the ball. I'm going to say that he gets at least another touchdown.
You know what's crazy? The Ravens have not scored 30 points in a game since week 3 of last year. I didn't realize it had been that long. But then when Chris said we haven't done it in a while, I had to look it up. It's not since that game in Foxborough last year.
I forgot that game even existed. I was reminded of it earlier with the red zone efficiency, and I was like, oh yeah, that happened.
I mean, it was such an outlier for what last year was, right? Just the offense just being able to do whatever they wanted, and yeah. It's easy to misplace that one as being from a different year.
I heard just a remarkable Steelers stat today. I can't remember. It was about blowout wins, and I believe. Let's see. What did they lose? They 30 to 6, right? So that was 24 points. I think that was the difference. So I think it was 24 points was the margin that they were talking about. They've been beaten by that much or more. I think it was 24 points. 24 points or more 6 times in the last 28 games. So since it was week 12 of 2021. Before that, from 1998 to the end of the 2020 season, or I suppose to week 11 of 2021, they were blown out 6 times.
Wow.
So in 22 years they were blown out 6 times, and then they've been blown out 6 times in the last 28 games. So it's not all the offense. It's not all Matt Canada.
Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It was really insightful, and I think it gave us a good lens of what to expect. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be back next week to talk about the game and see who won. And for now, go Ravens, and we'll talk to you.
All right, go Steelers. Thanks, guys.
And go Orioles.
Go Orioles.